Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, you should be able to see me any second now. It's coming.
Sure.
There I am.
Uh,
Hi, Dr. Sharma.
hey, Mr. McKeon. Nice to meet you on video.
Yeah, please call me Keith.
Keith. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. I like the setup. And yeah, on here, your setup.
Oh yeah, the brick wall.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And I had to download ChromaCast or something to get it to work.
Oh, wow. Okay. Got it. Well, yeah, you know, I've got everything ready. Basically, I went through and kind of summarized some of the records from your military service and then
Right.
the VA records, of course, and got some of the pertinence on there. Even though, we are, doing the migraines, secondary to tinnitus, I still included some of the notes about your headaches that you had in the military. I think still kind of including that is good. You had a couple of visits for headaches, it
Yeah,
looks like.
and I
So.
don't even remember that. That was so long ago.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No. But I included it in there just to let them know, like, hey, listen, this has been in there, as well. So,
Okay, appreciate
but
it. So
yeah.
have you already completed the DBQs?
Oh, not yet. So I did the evidence analysis section of the Nexus letter, and
Uh-huh.
I've got the DBQs open, and then so what I'm going to do is go through and verify some of the information, and then get some more information,
Okay.
basically.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I've been working very diligently for the past few months developing all my evidence for my claim. Uh,
Y-
Go ahead.
You've done a great, yeah. You've done a great job, and you made it really easy on me because everything's labeled. So not everybody does that. So,
Yeah, well,
uh,
in me helping you, it helps me. So when I'm ready for
yes.
my claim, I've got everything. And I'm also, just so you know, I'm working on, I worked for the railroad for 10 years. And
Uh
so,
huh.
and they provide a little bit more benefit than Social Security. So I'm working on developing a railroad retirement total disability claim. I'm not
Good.
quite eligible for TDIU, and I'm hoping I don't need to do that because I'm with my strategy and what I'm putting together, it's going to get me into the 100%. Uh,
Yes.
so with mental health, my target is 70, migraine is 50, um, and I've got another guy that's an expert in sleep apnea. He,
Oh,
he's a doctor of psychology, and
excellent.
he's written a book on sleep apnea, OSA secondary to PTSD. And
Nice.
see,
Uh huh.
a few months ago, I didn't even know that I had PTSD or would even, you know, could be capable of having PTSD because I always thought that was combat related. But
Oh,
when I started seeing the psych doctor at the VA, and that was initiated by my anxiety. And um, what came out from those sessions, I had 6 sessions. I just completed the last one last week. Was I also have depression, and you
mm-hmm.
see that in my problem list, insomnia, and I knew I had insomnia because I can never fall asleep, and when I do, I don't stay asleep very long. Um,
Uh-huh.
and then also PTSD came up in those sessions. I'm like, wow, I never would have even thought about that because it wasn't combat
Yeah.
related. So, and
Yeah.
she did a test, right, asking me questions, and it came back. She qualified it as very severe PTSD.
Yeah, 70 was your score on that, and your other score was really high also on the depression
Right.
as well.
Yeah,
So
that was
yeah.
considered severe, and that's I think the current
Yes.
diagnosis. She had me for major depressive disorder, and then she added the severe depression or whatever that one is, and she took off the other one.
Right, right. So don't worry. I'm gonna draw attention to it, and basically, what I'm gonna do is like three diagnoses. So, PTSD, chronic, major depressive disorder, recurrent, severe, and then migraine headaches without aura. All all of those diagnoses are in your records. Like when you look at the symptoms, So we don't need to. It all translates well, basically.
Right. So the PTSD, I think we've talked about. I just want to make sure I'm clear. Is a direct connection. So you're basically going to tie all the other mental health conditions to PTSD and tinnitus.
Right. Yeah. And the way it works is I'll read you the verbiage that I have. Which we can't I could change depending on how we think about it. But it is my expert opinion that it is more likely than not that the veteran's post traumatic stress disorder is related to and proximately caused by his military service. Right. And in that we're going to talk about, you did a great personal statement on the Challenger and that storm, right, that
That was
occurred.
a
So
practice run for my, when I submit the claim, I want to have that late statement included.
it's perfect. Yeah. And you focus on exactly what you need to focus on. There's no extraneous detail. It's great. It's great. Um so PTSD is here, and then in addition, the veteran's major depressive disorder is related to and proximately caused by his service connected tinnitus. So that is secondary. PTSD is primary, military service. Depression is secondary to the tinnitus,
Okay.
right? Um, but overall, what it means is that your mental health has been aggravated beyond its natural progression by the tinnitus, if that makes sense, So, and then together, everything under the mental health causes like significant social and occupational impairment. So,
It
yeah.
does. And I suffered with it for years. I've been married and divorced 4 times. I'm, I'm on my fifth marriage. One marriage was to the same person, the mother of my two sons. So,
Hmm.
and I never ever connected those dots to my condition, having caused it. It wasn't
Yeah.
until just very recently when I started thinking about it. And I left the workforce in November 2021 voluntarily because there were signs, there were signs on the wall that I was not managing my career very well. That write up that happened in 2021, I think it was April or something, where I lost control and was yelling at employees, that reported to me, in front of multiple, I was totally emotional, yelling and cussing. They reported that to HR, and the company felt it was important enough that the president of the company came to me one on one to say, hey, you, I just found out you did this. That's not acceptable. I'm going to write you up. And then he followed up with that. And there had been another time that wasn't documented that he came in, it was with another employee. He said, I was treating that person inappropriately. I got upset because they filed an expense report for an account that was losing money. And I said, no, you can't, I don't want you filing an expense report for an account that you're not making money on. And the account was that person's responsibility. And he came to me and said, no, I'm going to write you up, but he didn't. So that second time he actually followed through with it. And that was enough for me to realize that this isn't working anymore. I've got too many issues and I don't fit in well in a stressful environment, which with the level of responsibilities that I had, I was director of multiple operations across the country, and I was not doing very well. I have mental issues. I can't retain knowledge effectively. If it's not
Hmm.
something I learned a long time
Hmm.
ago, I can't retain it. And that's what I learned from my time at Dish Network. They fired me after a year because I wasn't retaining all the processes and everything that I needed to run a training center. So they wound up letting me go. I fought it, but at the end of the day, that message is now loud and clear now that I've had time to process it, think about it. Um,
Wow. Got it. Thank you. No, this is very good information.
and that's
Yeah.
in it's in the folder work history.
Yes. Yeah. But it's always good to get your sort of narrative on it as well. It kind of I get the energy behind it too, and so yeah, absolutely. No, this is good.
Migraines, I always dealt with those in the past. And I decided not to say anything in my claim that, in my office at my last company, I had a couch and I had portable lamps that I turned on instead of the overhead fluorescent lights that were too bright and really aggravated my migraines. So I would keep the lights off. And the president of the company at one point said, hey, you turn your lights on. Okay. But, I had a couch that I could lay down on whenever an attack came on, or I could put my head down on my desk because I had an office. I could close the door, kind of be undetected, but it was becoming too frequent, and I couldn't deal with that because I knew that I was on borrowed time as far as my migraines go.
Oh, yeah. Got it. Okay, I'm gonna come back to that. No, that's good information. So let me go back. One thing I wanted to do is I wanted to ask you, and this is just to ensure I like doing this part, just to ensure the VA can't say anything. Before the military, did you ever have significant enough mental health, like really significant mental health symptoms that made you see a psychiatrist or somebody like that? You know,
Never had anything until my first ship. And then I just
gotcha.
stuffed it down deep because, that was the whole, that's how you did things in the military. If I had gone and said I have mental issues, I would have been seen as weak.
Yep.
I would have,
And probably,
yeah, it would have been,
yeah,
it would have
yeah,
created more problems. So I stuck it
exactly.
down. And even after I got out, it was the same thing. I've
Mhm,
always been in a very masculine environment for work. Like I went to work after I
mhm.
got out for the railroad, working in a mechanical locomotive maintenance department around other,
Ah,
guys that worked with tools. So it was very, very machoistic, and you couldn't show weakness in that environment either. And I left that after I went back to school and got my degree and went into logistics. It was the same thing.
oh,
The predominantly male industry, and you got guys on the dock that drive forklifts, load freight all day, drive trucks, and that environment itself is very similar.
yes, got it.
So, but yeah, before that,
Um,
my parents never fought. I mean, that's not to say they didn't have disagreements, but there was never
right.
violent outbursts, or they didn't yell at each other.
Yeah,
And I was an only child, so it was just me and them. It was
gotcha.
no
Well,
issues at all. But then,
what part of the
go ahead.
oh, what part of the country was that?
Corpus, where I'm at,
That
I've come full circle.
got it. Got it.
When I got out of the
Got it.
military, I went to North Platte, Nebraska for a year working for the railroad. Then I transferred to Houston. That was in '97, and I was there from '97 until 2021 when I moved out here.
Oh, got it.
So I spent like 22
And
years in Houston.
got it. And how old are your kids?
I have two sons. They're adult, 38 and 32. They were born in 84 and 90. So 80,
Awesome.
yeah, he's 39. He just turned 39, and my son will be 33, I think, this year. So yeah, they're
Okay.
in full adulthood, and they live in the Corpus area too. I don't see them very often. I don't think they like me very much. You know,
Oh,
I think I
okay.
alluded to it in a personal statement that I don't really have
Yeah.
friends, and I realize that I can be around people for a little bit of time, a few minutes, an hour, or whatever. But after that, I don't want to be around people. I don't go out to
Yeah.
crowded areas. I don't go to concerts or anything like that. I try to avoid crowds and try to avoid being around people. So my sons, I think, just they got that subliminal message that I don't really like being around people. So I don't. I see them maybe once every 4 to 6 months.
Oh, wow.
It's unfortunate. In my head, I idealize seeing them once a week. Them coming over for dinner or something. But it just when it comes when it comes down to me inviting them, I don't. I always come up with an excuse.
Interesting. And the excuse and things like that, does that come from like a low motivation to do it? It's like, the energy's not there, or is it more like, uh-oh, I might get irritable? Like,
No, I'm not thinking that I might get irritable. It's just I don't. I'm not motivated to do it. I'm like it's too much trouble,
got it. Got it.
and that's the
Okay.
big thing. I've lost a lot of motivation in doing things that I used to take pleasure in.
Yes. Have you noticed that those types of things are not pleasurable anymore? Like a lack of joy, you know?
Yes,
Mm.
it's always underwhelming when I
Yes.
when I do take the risk and go out and do something. It's
Yeah.
it's a letdown.
Got it.
It didn't meet my expectations.
Yes. I wanted to go back to what you said about crowds. I'm sorry. The In the crowds, are you worried that something might happen? Like sort of heightened awareness.
I'm always looking for risk, looking for and assessing risk in a restaurant. I want to sit with my back to the wall, preferably facing the front where people come in, so that
Oh,
nobody comes in, without me knowing. Nobody comes or goes
yes.
without me knowing. So I'm always assessing that level of risk. Driving's the same way. I'm always worried about someone. I get mad and frustrated in traffic when people don't drive the way I think they should. And I'm actually
Mhm.
attending anger management clinic at the VA, a group session. I just had my third session yesterday. Yep, yesterday. Got I think there's three more for this, and and it's helping, but it's helping me realize some of the triggers and my auto responses and things that I can do to deal with that to take a more proactive approach to avoid the anger in the first place. And
Yes.
so yeah, so in traffic, I get mad, but I don't like roll my window down or honk and yell at people and flip them off, but I'm cussing in the car
Right.
sometimes. It scares
Right.
my wife and it scares other people that are with me. They've told me
Yes.
after the fact, you scare me when you drive.
Oh,
Yeah, so
got it. Got it. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the PTSD DBQ and I want to get some good info in here. So let's go scroll down here. Okay. So I've already check marked a few.
so I can follow along.
Oh, great, great, fantastic. So I've check marked a few. So starting with the diagnostic criteria, I've checked up marked a few already, which is directly experiencing the traumatic event, which was the storm, right?
Right,
And then witnessing in person the traumatic event as they occurred to others, which is the space shuttle. The space shuttle itself, like responding to it as a traumatic event, but you're also witnessing,
right.
because it was,
We're all watching it
yeah,
on the mess deck on TV. It was a live broadcast. We were steaming from Norfolk going down to the Caribbean for an operation, and we happened to be going. We were the closest ship heading in that direction that had the capability to recover it. So they
yes,
tasked us with assisting in that recovery, and we did. And then we took it as we kept steaming south. We dropped it off at NASA, Florida. We
got
recovered
it.
it somewhere, I think, off the coast of Georgia or something,
Mhm.
somewhere around there. And then we
Okay.
continued south and dropped it off. But yeah, so we watched it on TV, and that's one thing. I mean, to see it on TV, but when you see the result of that live in person and you're up close to it. I had a picture of myself in front of that cone. I've looked for it. I've moved so many times since then. I don't know what happened to it. You know, I
That's okay.
it was published in the All Hands magazine, which is an official Navy publication, and I included that, and I'll include that with my claim that there's a
Good.
brief article saying that USS Guam
Yes.
covered it.
Yes. Absolutely.
Directly
Absolutely.
experiencing, definitely with the transatlantic crossing
Uh huh.
that storm, I definitely directly experienced that.
Yes.
Where the ship was at risk and a lot of damage was caused by that storm that caused us to spend 45 days in Naples, Italy, having Italian shipyard workers repair the catwalks around the front end of that ship. And just to give you the scale and size of the ship, it's 600 feet long, or was, which is 2 football fields long. So it was it wasn't as big as an aircraft carrier, but it was basically a helo carrier that
Right.
that had a helo operations on it. It was a big ship. For it to,
Sure.
you saw some of those pictures of it. Oh my goodness.
Madness. And two helicopters you guys lost, right? In the scope of that thing.
Yeah.
So
So those two events, that I stuck
yeah.
deep inside had a major impact on my perception of risk, right?
Yes.
Because on the ship crossing the Atlantic going through the storm, I had no control over that whatsoever.
No.
If I had seen the weather, I would have said let's steam around it. And I think one of
Mm-hmm.
the articles that I included said it was a major error on the command to decide to steam through it instead of going around. They were probably on
Yeah.
a tight schedule and under pressure to get to the Mediterranean to meet all the scheduling, but so
Yeah.
steamed right through it. So that's an issue. And then of course with the space shuttle disaster, that crew relied on all of the engineers and all of the techs that designed and built and maintained the systems that failed.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a big initiative after that for quality. right? It
Hmm.
totally revamped, or NASA totally revamped its quality processes in response to that crash. So
Yeah.
knowing that our lives oftentimes depend on others that sometimes we don't even know who they are. I mean, that
True.
made me risk averse going through my career. One of the things, and I never connected the dots until recently, was one of the things that we did was as electricians on the ship, we had to go up the mast and
Right.
working aloft. I
Yeah.
refused to do it. You know, that was
Yeah.
too much risk in my mind.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. No, I'm glad you mentioned that in the statement as well. So, some of these I've already check marked. So, obviously, you have the distressing memories, right, of the event. I mean, that's a given. Um, uh, do you notice having dreams as well?
Yeah, nightmares of the ship sinking. That's my biggest dream.
Wow.
And it used to happen on a weekly basis, 2 or 3 times a week. I would have a
Hmm.
nightmare of the ship sinking, like spinning down a drain kind of thing. It was,
Wow.
I don't have it nearly as often now, but occasionally I still have them. For years,
Right.
I dealt with that.
Got it. And so you definitely have the dissociative, but what about physiological? Like, do you notice that when you do think about those past occurrences that you get increased heart rate,
Yes, like
sweating?
right now, and when I was talking with the VA psych doctor about it, my heart rate
Uh-huh.
elevated. My palms get sweaty, and
Yes.
I feel the adrenaline rushing. Like it's fight or flight right now.
Yeah, got it.
You hear it in my voice. I'm getting very anxious.
Sure. No, I appreciate you telling me about all this. I know it's like recounting all this is not easy.
Yes, and
Yeah.
I'm prepared for it. I knew it because when I talked about it a few weeks ago, same or about a month ago, I would say, same thing.
Sure.
I didn't expect it then. It kind of hit me. It was a blindsided, but
Sure.
I
Yeah.
expected it this time.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we've got that. And then this is easy. Obviously, there's avoidance, right? And when I think about avoidance, I think about, avoiding crowds, right? Avoiding places that get you hyper vigilant, right? Avoiding heights, right? For when you worked aloft, um, obviously, this one's a given, like avoiding the distressing memories. Of course, you want to avoid those, right, as much as possible. You want to avoid having them,
That's what I did for years. I stuffed them down deep inside and tried not to even think of them, even though they were impacting
Exactly.
my behavior and perception of reality.
Yes. But
That
also because nobody, I mean, how could you know, right? Like who told you? Nobody tells you about this stuff,
right, exactly.
Like, yeah. Now, thinking back, I know there's a bunch of stuff on here, but the first one is it tough to remember certain aspects of the past events? Maybe certain details from the Challenger and stuff like that,
I looked
or
at
not really?
the question
Mm.
and I didn't think that it applied. I don't.
Yeah.
There's external reminders. I mean, is that the one you're on? External reminders? Or are you
Oh, sorry. So I
authorization
went down to, yeah, that's right, that's right. But
remember? Uh, you know, I don't know if I'm not remembering everything because it's been so long ago. So I mean, I would
that's
say
true.
there's details that I probably blocked out, but I don't know for sure because if I did, I blocked them out, and you know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know, absolutely. Yeah, that's a tough one. But I bet we have some of these other ones. Do you feel like, I mean, I think I know the answer, but do you feel like the world is a dangerous place? You're kind of constantly on alert.
Yep.
I mean,
And
yeah.
I've known for years that I have trust issues. I've been told that I have trust issues. I don't
Huh.
up emotionally. I don't put myself at undue risk financially. There's so many things. I'm always afraid somebody's going to do something to take advantage of me.
Oh,
So I'm very skeptical. Like before I reached out to you, I did my due diligence. I investigated and looked you up to see who is this guy.
good.
You know, he had credibility because of Civ Div, and I've watched a lot of his videos. So that helped a lot with me realizing that this guy can help me, meaning you.
Absolutely.
But yeah,
Sure, sure.
I
Yeah.
carried that with me ever since those events.
Uh-huh. Okay. So definitely. Now this is a tougher one. Not everybody has this because it often depends on what the traumatic event is. But do you blame yourself for any of the traumatic events
I don't blame
that occur?
myself, but I blame, especially for the ship, I blame the captain. You know,
Yes.
holding him responsible. Why would you drive this, multi-million-dollar ship through a storm that was, an extreme storm? Why didn't you go around it? Who cares about the commitments we had? It's all about safety of the crew. One of the ships, it was reported in one of those articles that I referenced, somebody died on another ship going through this storm because of the
Oh
storm.
yeah.
So yeah, so I hold that the skipper or whoever made the decision to steam through it. I hold that.
Yes.
Oh, and then the other one for the space shuttle, all of the people that were involved with the quality and signed off on the things that failed, knowing that there were issues with it, who had the lives, and I'm getting upset, you had the lives of that crew in your hands.
Yeah.
You, you signed off on something that wasn't true.
Yeah. Yeah. It's horrible. It's horrible. And I think I get that fear that you're talking about, that there are people we don't know who are responsible for these safety measures, right? That are supposed to, just like people who inspect our planes, right, when we fly commercially,
Absolutely.
so yeah, yeah, and yeah, 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 absolutely. And then do you feel like you a lot of the time are in a state of fear or anger? Like it says persistent. That doesn't have to be all the time,
Yeah,
right? But
that's a good
a
question
lot.
because in this anger group therapy sessions that I'm going to, we talked about an anger meter from
Oh,
1 to 10, right? 10 is where you're going to jail for your violence. 8 is
yeah,
where you're breaking stuff, right?
yes,
3 is where you're in a constant state of aggravation from anger issues, right? From
yes,
um, anxiety and all the things that are attributed to anger issues. So when he put that into that perspective, I thought about it, and my response that day was, I stay between 3 and 7. I'm always in an agitation state,
oh,
but I haven't gotten violent in years. So then, like 2 or 3 days later, right? My wife gets upset with me about something. I don't even remember what it was, and it really wasn't a big deal. But she took a remote control, flipped it across the room, right? Didn't throw it. I mean, she just kind of tossed it. And when you drop a remote, the battery lid comes off and the batteries go.
oh yeah,
She did that, and then she left the room upset with me. And I got up out of my chair with the full intention of picking up the remote, collecting everything, putting it back together, and being done. When I picked it up, literally, my vision went like this. It was tunnel
oh,
vision. I couldn't see anything. And the feelings came over me. I took the remote and said, she thinks she broke the remote. Let me show her what broke looks like. So I chunked it as hard as I could against the wall. She was out of the room. I absolutely wasn't directing it at her, but I was
sure,
at the situation and chose that totally inappropriate response, which of
yeah,
course scared her. And I wound up apologizing after the fact. But that was the first violent expression like that I've had probably in years. But
got it.
that was last week. And so when I went back
Okay,
to group therapy yesterday, I said, hey, this is what happened. And they're
yes,
teaching us techniques, the box technique where you breathe, you do
yes. Oh yeah,
breathing exercises 4 times.
square.
I,
Yep.
and I did that when we discussed that, when they brought that up on the way home, that was 2 weeks ago. Um, Something in traffic got me upset. And I said, I'm going to do the breathing exercise that we just learned. So when I did it, I'm like, I think I need an octagon because the square wasn't enough. And so I told him that. I was joking, but that was the truth.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
2 days after that session, I had that violent outburst and shattered the remote. I mean, the remote was in pieces, hundreds
Yeah.
of pieces.
And that's that. So that answers another one of the questions in criteria E, which we'll get to in a minute here. But yeah, no, I'm glad you mentioned that example specifically, right? And we want to talk about the worst days, right? So I'm glad you mentioned that because that goes into the criteria, So
Oh, that
yeah.
examiner is going to get an earful.
Well, say that again. Say that.
CNP examiner is definitely going to get an earful from me.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I checkmarked the rest of the criteria in D because we did talk about those, like diminished interest in activities, detachment from others, and inability to experience positive emotions. Uh,
Yep.
does that make sense? Do you
Oh,
think?
yeah,
Just from our conversation, I think.
absolutely.
So.
The detachment or estrangement, like I've had difficulties maintaining relationships professionally and
Uh huh.
kids, girlfriends,
Yes.
wives, you name it.
Yeah.
I cannot make a connection with people. I try, or I think I'm trying. Obviously, it doesn't.
Sure.
So yeah, so that
Yeah.
diminished interest. Yeah, I'm always in a state of agitation, like I said. So interest or participation in significant activities, if that requires me being around other people, absolutely
Yeah.
doing it. Typically, if it requires any effort at all on my part, I'm not interested. I don't even want to do it.
Mm, got it. Okay. Now, the criteria E, we have irritable behavior and angry outbursts because remember, we want to talk about the worst day, right? And so definitely got that. I don't think, well, any self-destructive or reckless behavior?
Not
Uh,
that manifests itself physically, but what I can tell you is that I definitely have thoughts of suicide.
aha.
Like I was driving with my wife and my niece a couple of weekends ago on a highway in the country in a remote area, and it was a two-lane highway, one in each direction. And I kept thinking to myself, I could just easily swerve into an oncoming vehicle and end it. Now, I gave myself the excuse, well, that would impact my wife and my niece. So I didn't do anything. But I do, and I found myself having those thoughts significantly over the holidays
Aha.
regarding my parents. And
Yes.
I told my VA psych doctor that if I knew for certain that I could be reunited with my parents, I would most likely take action and do it.
Whoa.
So,
Whoa.
but I've always stopped short of putting a plan together. I've never
Okay.
put a plan that said, okay, I don't own a gun. That may be a good
Yeah.
thing. But I've
Yeah.
never put a plan together that said, I'm going to take a bottle of pills or I'm going to
Yeah.
get a gun, get the bullets, shoot my. I've never gone that far. But I think
Okay.
all the time because, and I think a lot of what's contributing to that now, I left the workforce voluntarily, but
Right.
I haven't worked in over a year. And as this is progressing, my sense of value and self worth I'm finding is diminishing because I'm not contributing to the household in a
Mm-hmm.
meaningful way, financially, and I'm not
Mm-hmm.
contributing to society in a meaningful way.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it makes me feel like, why am I still alive? Why do I even have a reason to continue? I don't, my relationship now is on the rocks.
Mm.
Relationship with my two sons is nil for the most part. I mean, I text them maybe on a weekly basis. They'll send me a text or I'll send them some, but I don't, like I said, I haven't seen them in months. So there's that. And yeah, so those thoughts are always creeping into my head, like asking myself, why are you still alive, Keith? For what?
Wow. Wow.
Hmm.
Is very much tied in with the relationship, self-esteem, it seems like.
Oh,
Okay. And you definitely have hypervigilance. We've established that. What about loud noises? How do you do with loud noises?
when I'm not having a migraine attack, the loud noises don't. Honestly, they don't really bother me.
Got it.
And that's probably because I've been conditioned working in loud environments, working on the railroad around running locomotives,
Yeah.
diesel engines. In the Navy, even I worked around loud machinery, and that's why I have tinnitus, and I probably have hearing loss as well. That when I went to the Texas Veterans Commission to help me file a claim way back in 2017, I said I want to file a claim for hearing loss. I'm pretty sure I have hearing loss, and they're like,
Hmm.
no, just file for tinnitus. You'll get tinnitus for sure. I'm like, okay, I didn't, it's because I didn't know anything, but I filed
Yeah.
for that and I got it. Um,
Yeah.
but that's because I've worked around loud environments my entire career in the Navy as an electrician, working around loud machinery, you know, steam, steam turbines, diesel engines, same thing with the railroad, same thing with even in the logistics industry, working around, trucks, idling,
Hmm.
loud
Hmm.
forklifts, always been around loud environments, and that's why
Yeah.
my wife tells me all the time, talk too loud. Like I was on the phone with
Oh,
somebody yesterday, and I'm talking very loud because I'm used to not being heard if I don't elevate my voice, and then of course I do that to be heard, and of course it comes across wrong with most people that have
yes.
been exposed to them. Like when I talk to guys that have been in the same industry as I have, and I'm talking loud, it doesn't phase them one bit. But when I talk
Yeah.
to somebody that's only ever worked in an office or hasn't worked in those environments, and I tend to take like very aggressive. I've been told that like when I'm sitting at a conference table, I used to do this. I would sit very
Oh.
aggressive posture that made other people feel threatened by me, right? Like I was going to jump up and start strangling, and that's right because
Oh.
I'm very assertive, right? And I speak very strongly,
Mhm.
um, and so that I was told when I went and got my MBA from Rice, one of my classmates that was on my team, he took me to the side and said, "Keith, this is how people perceive you." He explained it to me.
Wow.
So ever since that point, when I was at work talking to people, I would always hang my thumbs in my back pocket, and I would try to be aware of
Oh.
speak to people. Just I tried to change my posture, and I tried to change the tone of my voice and the decibel level of
Yes.
my voice, and
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
doesn't always work, but at least I'm aware of it now.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, got it. And I already checkmarked problems with concentration and sleep disturbance, because you have those. And then, of course, I checkmark criteria F. Yes, it's more than a month. And then criteria G, which is it does cause clinically significant distress and impairment. So, and then it's criteria H, of course, that we're not attributing this to medication or alcohol, that it is PTSD.
Yep. So no
Okay.
criterion in this section. Is that what you checked, or did you
Oh,
check
no, no, no.
disturbance is not attributable?
Right, right. The disturbance is not attributable. Yeah, yeah. I know it sounds weird. It's not attributable to something else. So,
Yeah, we went
yeah.
to
So
double
it.
negative. I think I was
Yeah.
confused with that question. I'm like, which one makes sense? So going back to section E,
Hmm.
exaggerated startle response. Did you check that?
Right.
You did check.
Uh, no, only because you're like conditioned to loud noises. You
Exactly.
mentioned. So,
Make sure because
yeah,
I do not feel I have that. Like
yeah,
when 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 a combat veteran hears a boom or something, they hit the deck, right, taking cover. Yeah,
yeah.
I don't have any reactions. Like, okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Gotcha. No, no, no. Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you did. Oh, cool. Now, before we go to number 4, um, I wanted to ask you, and I know you already told the psychologist this, but if you could just give me a little snippet of how the tinnitus interferes with your mood and insomnia and things.
I was telling somebody on Facebook in my USS Guam group because he mentioned something, and I said, yeah, I have. He mentioned tinnitus, and I said, yeah, I have tinnitus too, and it drives me crazy, you know. And I don't think I ever noticed it because I was always in a loud environment, right? So, and I would spend most of the day in that environment. I would go home and I'd be tired and I'd collapse and fall asleep, and then my alarm would wake me up, and I would hurry up and get ready and do it all over again. But over the past year, I've had the time, the quiet time, to reflect. And when I do that, I mean, all I hear is that humming noise, and it's a constant noise in my head, especially when I'm trying to fall asleep. And I think that really aggravates my insomnia. Which
Yes.
so yeah, so it, and I think hearing it all the time aggravates me. It makes me, it increases my anxiety. It makes me angry a lot easier, much more irritable. Absolutely.
Exactly. So, smaller stressors irritate you a lot more than if you did not have that,
I think, yeah.
right?
I mean, I don't know that for a fact because I've always had it. But yeah,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, good point. Good point. That's true. But yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, got it. Okay, great. Now, let's go back to the list here. And don't worry, we don't have to expand on each one, but you definitely have depressed mood. You definitely have anxiety. You definitely have suspiciousness, right, of others. What about? I know that you do have the physiological response, but any panic attacks?
I know. I,
No.
my wife suffers from panic attacks. Her brother suffers
Oh,
from panic attacks. I don't feel like I've ever had a panic attack where just out of the blue, I start freaking out. It's always
exactly.
associated with a thought or a reminder of something. It's not just, and both of them say it just comes on. They don't know what triggered it. So yeah,
Unprovoked. Yeah. Okay. Cool. This one, I want to make sure. So, and I'll translate it because it's very narrow the way they say it. But do you get affected by depression to the point where you're just like, man, I just want to lie in bed. I'm just like done. You know, I'm just gonna sit here or lie here, and I'm just not gonna do anything. You know?
I now that you mention that, I didn't check it when I went through it, but now that the way you're saying it, I've never associated my inactivity and my unwillingness to do something with being depressed or
Wow.
whatever. So,
Wow.
and what threw me on this question is near continuous panic
Oh, right. Or depression. Yeah.
or depression. Yes.
Yeah.
So I would say yes.
Yes.
Near continuous
Yes.
depression affecting your
Yes.
ability to function independently and appropriately and effectively. Yep.
Exactly. Okay. And then, of course, sleep, chronic sleep impairment. Um, what about, well, I think I know the answer, but memory loss, like forgetting names, directions, recent events, recent conversations.
On my
You
last
know?
visit with my psych doctor at the VA, I'm
Yes.
driving along and I didn't have my map going at the time and I just zipped right by the exit. I'm like, whoops, there went my exit. I totally
Oh,
forgot, and when I
okay.
dish, I was supposed to be learning all of the processes to support training and to support all the technicians that we train. And I couldn't retain it.
Uh-huh. So actually, that relates a little bit with another one. Well, actually, let's just go in order. We'll just go in order. And then this next one goes along with what you're already talking about, which is impairment of short and long term
Yes,
memory.
that would be the
So,
dish example that I just gave you. Yep.
it, exactly. Okay. What about memory loss for like really like close relatives or stuff that's like really, on the surface of your brain? You know what I mean? Yeah.
No, I've never. I don't think I've ever experienced that. I know the people that are close to me for sure. Now, when I meet
Yeah.
somebody and I come back to them later, 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, the next day, a week later, I don't remember their name.
Ah, okay.
But that I wouldn't qualify them as close relatives or anything under that check mark.
True. True. Now, the next three, no, actually, sorry, the next two things are technically not symptoms; they're signs, right? But the VA doesn't differentiate. So, flattened affect is something that as a psychiatrist I observe in people, right? And I do think you have a flattened affect.
Yeah, what is
Uh,
that exactly? I didn't know.
yeah.
I didn't look it up.
So
So
That's okay. Yeah. So what it means is that your expression is mostly one expression. Okay. So it's not as reactive as I might expect it to be when we're discussing certain topics. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like,
So yeah.
yeah.
So I'm thinking flattened effect means no positive emotions and no negative emotions, just kind of a.
Oh,
But that's how I interpreted it, and I'm always in, like I said, a sense of aggravation.
oh, right, right.
That's that's not flattened. That's always an elevated emotion. So I
That's
don't know,
true. Yeah. Mm,
but it's always at that somewhere in that state or that level. So maybe it is
right.
flat because it doesn't vary much.
Exactly. Exactly.
Always
And that's
fired
how
up
I,
about something.
right. And that's kind of what I think about it as, is like there's not a range in emotion, right? There's not a range in emotion. That's the way.
With
Um
you saying that, then I would say yes, flattened effect.
yeah.
I'm impacted by that.
Yes. And then the next one, I do think you have, and it's not a negative thing, okay, don't worry, but I do think you have circumstantial speech, which is basically when you're explaining something, you kind of hit around different topics and then you come back to the main topic, which is a good thing for explaining things, but it is circumstantial. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
I tend to go off on tangents. Okay.
Nothing wrong with that. But
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
tend to get long-winded and I lose people. And that was part
Right,
of the
sure.
reasoning for thinking that my effectiveness as a leader in communicating with my team wasn't
Ah,
wasn't valid anymore because I talk in circles.
yes.
Oh, thanks.
Sorry. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Got it. Now, this next one is more severe. Uh, have you had times when people are telling you like you're making no sense, right? I don't mean tangential, but it's just illogical. Like it makes no sense. You're talking about something completely different, you know?
Right.
Uh,
Well, I tend to think and communicate in abstract or conceptual thinking, right?
uh-huh.
I don't tend to talk where the rubber meets the road. Most people
Ooh.
I talk to are looking for me, when I was a leader in the workforce, we're looking for tell me where the rubber meets the road so I know what to do. I'm giving them the whys and the conceptual reasons for why this process is in place, why I designed this SOP the way I did. People's eyes, and I noticed it all the time, they would just glaze over like I have no idea what this guy's talking about.
Interesting.
So I,
Interesting.
I would have to figure out another way to approach them because I
Yeah.
couldn't make the connection. And then I
Yeah.
get frustrated at another one when I told you this a week ago. And 2 weeks before that, and I'm yelling and cussing, and that's when, and that all came to a head. But that had been a pattern of my behavior over a longer period of time, for sure.
Uh-huh.
So and I never
Okay.
thought about that till right now.
Oh. Well, definitely that qualifies.
I
And
don't
I'm
walk around thinking that my speech is illogical. I'm pretty smart, but
right, right, of course.
if I can't communicate effectively to somebody, something's wrong.
Right. And I don't think it's illogical, but you qualify for maybe obscure, right? Because it says illogical, obscure, or irrelevant, right? Hmm.
And so going off on tangents most often doesn't it supports my argument, but in a roundabout, what's the other word?
Circumstance. Yeah,
Circumlocutory or whatever it is. Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
Got it. Now, the next one is difficulty in understanding commands, but we need to translate this. Okay.
Okay.
Um, so let me give you a hypothetical situation, right? So let's say if I said, "All right, Keith, what I want you to do is I want you to go to the grocery store and pick up X, Y, and Z, and then I want you to go to Walgreens and pick up this prescription, and then I want you to come back to the house and do this." Okay. All right. Without writing it down. is there a good chance that you're going to mix something up in that sequence, and understand that?
As you said that, I was thinking to myself, I would be writing that stuff down. I'm making a note on my phone so that
Yes.
go to this place, this place, this place, get these items. And when I don't do that, I'll forget one of the steps.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Okay. Got it.
I never would have even thought that. So
Yeah, yeah. They try to hide it in these in these things, but um impaired judgment, I do want to check mark that, but I want to run it by you. But what that means is that you might look at a situation and judge it in a wrong way. Okay, so maybe a crowd of people, you're looking at threats. Meanwhile, it could be a completely safe crowd, right? And or situation. Do you think that resonates with you?
I never think it's a completely safe crowd. But
Gotcha.
it could be. You're right.
Hypothetically,
Hypothetically.
Yeah.
When I'm around a lot of people, I'm constantly monitoring.
Yes. There you go. And then abstract thinking. I mean, you can tell me what you think about that. It does sound like you might be good at that, but we can do a test for it as well. So I'll ask you, what is similar between a train and a bicycle?
They're modes of transportation.
Wow. Yeah, that's exactly abstract thinking. Yeah. So people who can't or have difficulty with abstract thinking will say they both have wheels, Yeah. So,
I don't think, yeah, I mean, I like to think I'm smart and I can think in the abstract, but that doesn't,
yeah.
that's not always an effective way to communicate with others. But I've always thought I think that way. So maybe I do.
Yes. Absolutely. All right. Next up is gross impairment in thought processes or communication. Now, this is a pretty severe symptom. Gross impairment means a global impairment. So it's difficulties in most thought processes and communicating ideas. So it's a lot more severe than the previous, Um, uh, what do you think? I don't think it probably applies,
It's a thought processes or communication. I would say my thought processes are intact. I mean, I have lucid thoughts all the time. I in my mind, I'm totally wrong. But as far as my communication, that's where that's where the disconnect is in my mind.
Aha.
I'm not always able to effectively communicate what's in my head to someone.
Yes. So, no, I'm really glad you said that. So, difficulties. Okay, got it. So we're gonna check mark that because remember, and I like that you caught on to the or, right? Because you do have the communication issue. The next one is easy. You definitely do have disturbances in motivation and mood. I believe. I mean, yeah. Next one is easy. You mentioned this before. You have difficulty establishing and maintaining effective work and social relationships. That's there. Difficulty adapting to stressful circumstances, including work or work-like setting. I do think we should check mark that because of the things that happened when you were working in the past.
And not just at work, but in my social settings too, with my wife, with other people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Same thing with inability to establish and maintain effective relationships. I think that goes with your sons and with some, the rockiness with your wife,
And all my past, really, like I said, I've been divorced 4 times.
Yeah.
So yeah, and one of the jokes that I heard a long time ago, what's the common denominator to all of your failed relationships? You. So
Oh no.
so yeah, so
Yeah.
I definitely have issues with relationships, professional
Sure.
and personal.
Yeah. Got it. And then I did check mark suicidal ideation after what you mentioned before as well. Yeah. And then I do want to check mark obsessional rituals because you did tell the psychologist about them.
Yes.
These, yeah,
And I, even when I'm thinking, this is excessive, like I analyze my finances to the nth degree all the time.
right,
Or, when I'm doing some comparative analysis of something, I take it to the nth degree. And I'm really good with spreadsheets, Microsoft Excel
yes,
to be exact. And, I've got a spreadsheet for just about everything that I do. And,
oh wow,
and I tend to spend an inordinate amount of time crunching the data to figure out,
oh
am I making a good decision or kind of thing.
wow,
So I definitely take it, and my wife tells me all the time, you need to get up from the computer.
uh,
I'm not done.
right, and that goes back to the obsessional tendencies there, right? Yeah, so yeah. Okay. And then I do think the next one applies to you: impaired impulse control, such as the remote throwing. You know,
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
mhm, yeah. The next one, I do want to check mark this because you mentioned missing turns sometimes when you're not paying attention.
Oh, I didn't
Um,
even
eh,
think of that. Yeah, I didn't check that when I went through them last night, but I'm like spatial. I'm thinking like around me, but
oh, yeah, I know. That's what it sounds like. Yeah, which it could be. Some people do have that, but for me, I think about driving a lot. Um, and that's with spatial disorientation there because you might zone out, lose track of where you are, miss the turn, and then you're
and I
disoriented.
do that.
You know?
My thoughts start wandering, and there goes the exit. I don't even realize it till I'm farther down the road.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, good. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Yes, sir. Um, it doesn't sound like you have persistent delusions or hallucinations.
Yeah, I would say no to that.
Yeah. I don't think you have grossly inappropriate behavior
That was
where
it.
you're completely, yeah. Yeah. It doesn't sound, well, what do you think about the next one? Persistent danger of hurting self or others. I think intermittently you do have those suicidal thoughts.
Right. But
Um,
again,
but I,
I've never put a plan to it, so I don't think there's
yeah,
danger or persistent danger. I
I
have
don't think so.
thoughts, and it could escalate at some point in the future. But right now and in the past, I don't think I've ever been in danger of intentionally hurting myself or others.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought. Make sure. And then the two next points are actually a little bit bundled together, but during like those depressions or when, times when you don't have the motivation to do anything, do you tend to skip maybe even the day, right? Skipping shaving, showering, deodorant, things like that, you
Yeah,
know?
my
Hmm.
wife often tells me, "You need to take a shower." She calls me, she says, "You're like my dad." Her dad was 95 something. He just passed away a few months ago, and
Oh,
he would go days without taking a bath. They would say, "You need to take a bath, Dad," and he'd be like, "Nah, I don't want to." So she compares me to her dad because I'll go 2, 3, 4 days without. And so because I had my meeting with you and I didn't want you to see me all disheveled, I shaved,
sure.
showered, and everything, even though we're not face
Yeah.
to face, but I didn't want you to. So, I mean, I do have the wherewithal to understand, the importance of it. If I'm meeting somebody that's going to be important in my life, like you, right? Um, I will do it. But if I don't have anything on my agenda for a day, I have no motivation to take care of my personal hygiene.
Yeah.
You know, if I
Yeah.
if I don't smell something, yeah, I might skip.
Yeah.
And sometimes I go 2 or 3, 4 days sometimes.
Yeah.
My wife
There you
says,
go.
you need to take a shower. So yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
I go on.
No, no, that's a good description. So I think that the next point automatically gets in there because of that, including maintenance of minimal personal hygiene, right? So, um, and then disorientation to time or place. That's usually pretty significant. What do you think? Let me ask you that first before I tell my spiel.
No, I would say I'm always aware of what time it is and where I'm at. So I mean, I don't think that's an issue for me.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. All right, thank you, sir. So that's the DBQ there. Um,
The rest of it is just the comments that you're going to write, right? All the
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that'll be all the other stuff
awesome.
from the Nexus. So I'm gonna save this, and then I'm gonna close it, and then I'm gonna finish it later. Now, you did a great job on that. So next, we're gonna go to the migraines. Okay.
Okay.
Um, you already gave me a great connection from the tinnitus for the migraines, which is really nice. I have that connection really well. You've given me a little bit of the occupational side as well, but let's go through the DBQ. Hold on a second here. Okay, so I'm scrolling down to what page is that? Page 2. Page 2. Okay.
I'm on page 2.
Yes. Does a veteran now have? Yes, a headache condition, right? Migraine, including migraine variants, right? So the ICD-10 code that I'm going to put is, you don't need to know this, but G43.009, which is migraine headaches without aura. And the reason I want to put that is, I know we haven't talked about it yet.
That's what my doctor, I think. I don't know if that's the code, but it's migraine without aura.
Exactly. And that's why I want to put that, because I can put the date of diagnosis as when your doctor diagnosed it, you know? Yeah. So when you look back, let me put it down here. Doctor, where did it go? There it is. Dr. Thopil. Oh, okay. Thank you. That was on 12 December 2022.
If I actually went to I went to urgent care for migraines
Right.
because they've been happening more frequently. And that was
Yes.
right around the time too that I started logging it. I think that was in November that I went to urgent care and I started using Migraine Buddy and logging it.
Ah.
And I've included that. I put it in a spreadsheet because I love spreadsheets. But
Right.
from what I can tell, I haven't run a deep analysis on it, but it looks like it's happening on average a couple of times a week.
Yes.
And they last for anywhere from 2 hours to 8 or more hours sometimes.
Yes. Yes. And that's exactly what I thought when looking at it. First, let's just talk about, I know that the VA, when they documented it, they said you've been having it for years. Yeah. Can you tell me?
In my military service where I have been seen for headaches.
Exactly. Exactly. So when has it like significantly worsened, do you think?
Over
You
the
know?
past year when I stopped working.
Aha.
It happened occasionally at work. Like I said, I would keep my lights dark in my last job because
Hmm?
I was able to bring lights into the office, lamps that really significantly reduced the lumens in the room.
Yes.
So that kind of helped it. But when I left the workforce, and honestly, I left the workforce because of my diabetes. I was working, 12 to 15-hour days, and I was traveling, extensively. Sometimes I would be gone for 4 months at a time without coming back home. Like we had a big project in Memphis where I was there for over a month. So with that, I wasn't eating properly and I wasn't exercising properly, and my diabetes numbers were going the wrong way. And I'm like, I've got to make a change because I don't want to work till I die. Right. So I made the conscious effort to take care of all my affairs, put all my affairs in order, and then leave. And I moved down here. My wife and I talked about it. We were engaged at the time. She was happy to bring me down here. So I came down here in November. We got married in December. But the primary reason
Oh.
for me was to take care of my health because it was going down the tube. That and then being with my wife and marrying her, and then being closer to my son hasn't really panned out very well. But so that is why I left. But since I left, I've had time to realize in the silent reflection, my migraines have really ramped up bad.
Yes.
And I think a lot of it's aggravated by the tinnitus. But I mean, I think it also, now that I've had time to process my mental conditions, it's aggravated by my anxiety and depression.
Yes. And I think that's a big factor. I think we won't attribute it to that because then they'll say we're trying to pyramid, but I do think that's likely a factor, you know,
Okay.
as well. Yeah, yeah. Sometimes if we try to do it before it's approved, then they'll say like we're trying to pyramid it or something, you know. But
Oh, okay, gotcha.
yeah, yeah. But we definitely have enough. The thing is, you've been very consistent in talking to people about it, and you've told people that the tinnitus worsens your migraines. You know, so it's very consistent. So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Oh yeah, you're welcome, sir. Okay. Now, does the veterans treatment plan include taking medication? Yes, indeed. And you are currently on, or you have available, I think it's rizatriptan.
That's the most recent one. I was prescribed the other one first, and I reached
Right.
out to my doctor and said, "This isn't working. Is there anything else that might help?" And then even since then, I've said, it doesn't help me a lot. Can I double up on the dosage at onset? She came back and said, "Oh, wait a couple of hours first, and then if you still need to, you can." And then she told me something about there's a limit to how many I can take in a day or something like that. So, yeah.
True. Got it. Okay. And do you take other things for it, like maybe naproxen or Tylenol or
I was
ibuprofen or?
taking Excedrin before the prescription. So I think
Okay.
500 milligram. I would take
Got
typically 3 to 4 of those at a time.
it. Got it. I'm going to include that. Okay. Does a veteran experience headache pain? Yes. So let me translate this part. So during the migraine episode, is the pain constant? During the migraine
Yeah,
episode?
it's not
Yes.
throbbing or anything like that. It's
Got it.
continuous pain.
Got it. And is it on one side of the head, both sides?
I've had it on both, and that's in the data in the log. But
Yes.
typically, it's on the left side, like right here.
Uh-huh.
It's in my neck in the back.
Got it.
So it's typically the left side and then the back of my neck. Typically on the left, but it does span to the right sometimes. And then
Got it.
sometimes the pain is in the right side of up here.
That supports our hypothesis. So the studies, and which I'm going to include in my nexus, have shown that people who have migraine headaches or headaches secondary to tinnitus, they tend to be, not all the time, okay, but they tend to be unilateral and switching sides. Okay, so it's very good history there. So left side predominantly, sometimes right, but left side predominantly. So
Okay, good to know.
yes.
I'm anxious
Okay.
to read your nexus letter.
Yes. Yeah, it'll be. I'll compile it all. Do you notice that during the migraine headache, if all of a sudden you have to get up and move around, shake your head, you're walking, does it get worse? Yeah.
Yep, and I've logged that pretty much every time. Pain worsens with
Yes.
physical activity. So,
Yes.
I immediately what I do is I stop everything and I go lay down. I go to a dark room. I go to
Aha.
no noise. It's got to be silent, dark, and I can't be doing anything.
Yes. That means it's prostrating, which we're going to get to later.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, okay. Now, do you get non-headache symptoms, right? So we're talking about, I mean, you've already told me sensitivity to light, sensitivity to sound, right? But what about like nausea?
Okay. No nausea, no vomiting, no
Mm-hmm.
changes in vision, no
Mm-hmm.
sensory changes.
Mm-hmm.
But
Anything?
I checked other and I typed in adrenaline rush, like I start to feel jittery and
Aha.
increased heart rate at onset.
Aha. Increased heart rate. Any sweating by any chance, or not really?
Um, I haven't noticed. That's not to say I'm not, but I'm not being physically active, so the sweating would be minimal.
Got it.
But definitely an adrenaline rush where I start to feel jittery.
Yes.
And it's similar to the way I feel when my blood sugar drops below 100,
Oh.
where I just kind of tremble, shake, and
Yes.
then the increased heart rate also at onset.
Got it.
I just think that goes with the adrenaline rush, probably. Because I haven't
Exactly.
my heart rate at the onset because all I'm trying to do is lay down.
Of course.
But it feels like the heart rate's up.
Yes. Now, typical duration of duration of typical head pain. You told me this before. It could be 8 or 12 hours, or it could be more. Is that right?
Yeah, and I thought about that because it's vague, because it doesn't really talk about the duration of a headache in hours, because that's typically how you measure it.
Yes.
I chose 1 to 2 days because sometimes when it happens in the evening, it spans to the next day, or I go to bed and I wake up the next day and it's gone. So I chose 1 to 2 days based on that.
Excellent.
And it's
Excellent.
never gone more than 2 days.
Got it. Okay. Perfect. I mean, yeah, that makes perfect sense. So 1 to 2 days.
Talk about the frequency. It doesn't ask the question for frequency.
Right, which I'm gonna put in my Nexus letter. I don't like these DBQs, honestly. Like, they're very limiting, and so I'm gonna include that in the Nexus. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I was thinking we could write, I guess, left side of the head for the next one, or what do you think?
Indicate location of typical. Yeah. So I would say left side. I would check left side, right side, and back of other is back of neck.
Yep. So let's do left side typically, and then radiating to back of neck. I'm typing in the comments.
Right.
Back of neck. Yeah. I got it. Now, yes, you do have prostrating attacks, and then so this is so stupid. So it says the frequency of prostrating attacks over the last several months. They only give you 3 options, but I can write more in the Nexus letter. Is it once every 2 months? Is it once every month or more?
More than once a month.
Exactly. For the prostrating, I mean, it sounds like it's pretty frequent. How many times a week would you say? I'm going to put that in the Nexus.
I mean, if you can look at the spreadsheet, the log, and just average it, it's at least 2 times a week. I'm thinking. Yeah. I'm not exactly sure, but sometimes it happens today and it'll happen tomorrow. Sometimes I'll go 4, 5, 6 days without it. Sometimes I don't know, but
yeah, no,
at least twice a week.
Exactly, and yeah, that sounds right.
Would you recommend me submitting the log with my claim?
That's a very, very good question. Yes, for you, yes. The reason why I was asking you these questions is I wanted to see, not because for any reason, but I was going to tell you whether or not to submit your log. Okay, your log matches very closely with your report. So you should submit your log. Okay. So yeah, you're welcome. For some folks, it doesn't jive because they didn't record every episode, So yeah. Does a veteran have very prostrating and prolonged attacks of migraines, productive of severe economic inadaptability? I want to mark yes, because
absolutely, I could not work under this condition. I wouldn't last very long in a job, because I would be incapacitated twice a week for hours.
Exactly. Especially with the president coming by and telling you, like, man, what are you doing with the lights off, right? I mean, it's going to be,
yes.
Yeah. Does the veteran have any other pertinent physical findings, complications, conditions, signs, or symptoms related to the conditions listed in the diagnosis section above? So that's for me. I'm going to mark yes, and I'm going to write, please see attached independent medical opinion, which I'm going to write more details, of what you've told me.
Sure, okay. Sounds good.
So please see attached independent medical opinion for details. I don't believe you have any scars on your head related to migraines, probably.
Right.
Yeah.
I have one scar, but I don't think it has anything to do with my migraine. It's a very
right.
small scar.
Okay.
So yeah, I would say that.
Are there any other significant diagnostic test findings or results? I got to look back to my notes here. Hold on. I don't think so, right? Did we? Wait. I now this is my memory. I'm gonna go back and see. Did he? Did your doctor order a CT scan of your head?
And I just completed it a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if I uploaded the images. Did I?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let me check. Oh, okay. I don't think I have those ones, but no rush. I mean, if you want, whenever you get a chance, you can forward it to me, and I can list it here.
No, because I wasn't doing it. I was trying to see if I had anything that aggravated my sleep apnea, like sinusitis. So I
Oh,
asked my doctor, can I be, she ordered a CT scan and a MRI of my head.
got it.
And so the only
Okay,
because I have sleep apnea, but I also have vertigo symptoms as well. So I'm trying to decide
Meniere's.
if that's Meniere's syndrome or if it's just peripheral vestibular disorder.
Right.
What they found was there was no sinusitis,
Mhm.
and but there was something that was in my equilibrium in the, I can't remember what you call the little oil looking tunnel.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh my God. The Eustachian tube,
Sure. It was in
Eustachian tube.
language and I didn't really fully understand it, but
Sure.
heck, when I got done and that was the MRI, he said, "Do you have vertigo issues?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay, yeah, that's something that's in my equilibrium basically."
Interesting. Interesting. Okay.
To see a doctor about that. I think I've got it scheduled for this month sometime.
Okay.
So I can definitely let you know if there's anything going on there. I never
Yeah.
made the connection between anything going on with those scans or what they would reveal having an impact
Right.
on my migraines. But what I can
Got it.
I can upload the report and then I'll send you an email saying that the report and the images are there. Well,
That's a
I have to share the link because the images are really videos. They're not videos, but right, they're on a web page where you click it and it just runs through the image.
right. Right. No, absolutely. No, I appreciate that. No rush, but when you do that, I'll put it in here.
And it just takes
Yeah.
a few minutes to put that up there. I didn't make
Great.
a connection with migraines, or you already have.
Oh, that's okay. And then does the headache condition impact his or her ability to work? Obviously, and I'm going to put down, I'm going to copy and paste from my Nexus letter, that stuff there. Yeah. And then the rest is the remarks, which is how I'm going to tie it into the tinnitus pretty much. So,
Okay, and then you'll show chronicity using the service treatment record.
yes,
Perfect, man.
exactly.
I think sounds like it's going to be a rock solid nexus that's going to really help prove my claim for mental
Yes.
health, PTSD, and migraines.
Yes.
That's going to really
Yeah.
needle. I've been at 20% since 2017. Before that, it was zero. I did, because I didn't know anything about Title 38 until I started researching it a few months back. And I've learned so much from guys like Siv Gibb, from Combat Craig. I'm sure you've heard of him, and the
Yes.
Claims Insider guy. I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
necessarily agree with their predatory methods of preying on veterans who don't know anything. But
Right.
he's definitely that guy's and his team are definitely very knowledgeable in the claims process, and his videos have been very helpful. So collectively, there's a group out there that have really helped me focus my research. So my understanding of VA claims is much stronger now than it ever was in the past. I relied on a VSO, which was Texas Veterans Commission. So I would go to them not knowing anything, and they would put together the claim, and it was like throwing spaghetti against the wall to see whatever sticks. So when I got out of '96, I filed a claim with their help, and I got 0% connected for my toe, the bunion on my toe, hallux valgus, hemorrhoids, 0%,
Uh-huh.
and a scar on my back that was from military service that I can't even, and I didn't even remember that. So,
Wow.
but so I'm going to go after the hemorrhoids. It's only going to give me 10%. It's not going to move the needle much, but I've
Yeah.
learned so much. It's going to help me.
Absolutely. It's not your fault. I mean, I think it's purposely encrypted,
Right.
in a lot. Yeah. Uh, and yeah, no, and I'm gonna put everything in there. I've got I've got tons of studies. This morning I was doing a literature review, but there's so many studies showing tinnitus causes depression and anxiety. There's tons. I mean, there's more than I can fit, really, into the nexus. And then same thing with tinnitus and headaches. Tinnitus and headaches, there's not as many studies as with the tinnitus and depression. I think that's just the matter of like how many studies they have available, but it's pretty decent as well.
Right. And as far as the PTSD goes, the guy that I found, his name is Todd Finnerty.
Oh yeah.
He's based in Ohio. He wrote the book PTSD secondary, or no, sleep apnea
Uh,
secondary to PTSD, and
right.
he's done studies, and he's done a lot of research on it, and in my mind he's an expert in that. So
Sure.
he's gonna write a nexus that connects my sleep apnea to my PTSD and mental health, and using my obesity, my body mass
Oh,
index being over 30. And I never made the
sure.
connection of that to PTSD because, again, I never realized that PTSD would apply to me. But
Yeah.
I started experiencing being overweight while I was in the Navy. After I left the USS Guam, where I experienced the two traumatic events, I was diagnosed as being overweight and sent to I think it was a 30-day treatment plan, 4 weeks, for being overweight. And there was, the focus was on overeating. We attended overeating anonymous groups, and that's what it was all on. So I didn't make the connection that, I was eating from emotion instead of not being able to control myself, because I'm like, I have self-control, but that was basically what they preached to us, that you just have to have better self-control. So you need to learn the symptoms to avoid overeating. But I never made
Sure.
the connection that it was tied to those traumatic events. And so he's going to tie it all together, and I'm hoping that that's going to be a strong nexus like yours. And with
Absolutely.
yours and his, as my two current service connections, that's going to get me to 95, right on the
Yeah.
spot. So that's encouraging.
Absolutely.
And your experience
Absolutely.
with your nexus, when you get feedback, is it always like, what percent would you say you get a favorable rating?
So, with exception to sleep apnea, because man, the VA fights on that. But with everything else, my percentage is very high. So let me tell you, with a case like yours, where the documentation is actually good, um, where you've been talking to people about these issues in the VA system, right? That's the biggest thing, because if when somebody comes to me and they have like zero documentation, it's like it's really difficult.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah,
And
right,
I've
and
learned over the last few months, it's all about medical evidence. And then the
yes,
icing on the cake is the nexus, making the connection and tying it back to your service, either directly or secondarily.
exactly,
So I've been working.
and
I've been working diligently. I mean, it's like a full-time job, really, developing my claim.
sure, sure. No, absolutely. And so the rate is about 95% on those, 95%. Okay. Now, I'm putting a little bit of doubt there because I've had it where like one guy recently, they denied it because they found a GS position that he had applied for. On the occupational health exam, he had denied depression, and it was within the last couple of months.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah, that
yeah, like
not
like basically he went for a GS something position, and there was an occupational health exam, and he marked no on depression because he wanted to get the job, and he was afraid, but
shot
but they
myself.
denied it. Yeah, yeah. I was like, man, no. Like, and I didn't know about that, right? Like, I didn't have access to that. But so I put in a little bit of margin there just in case they find something weird, but I don't think they will.
And I
So
know the Todd Finnerty guy. He's talked about how there's a lot of inconsistency between raters, that and
yes,
they don't properly apply the law when it comes to claims.
It's horrible. And that's the other margin of doubt there, where if we get somebody who's just who is not knowledgeable, really, that they might do something like that. But I hope not. I mean, not to get our hopes up, but I've had a lot of folks where they don't even need a CMP exam, where I had one guy email me just a couple of days ago. He's like, "Doc," a screenshot of his rating. And it was like, I didn't, yeah. And he was like, "Yeah, I didn't."
Case is fully developed and you've got a strong, DBQ and you've got a strong nexus to go with it. Why would they need to go through the expense of a CMP exam?
Exactly. And that's where whoever rater is looking at it, they're like a good rater, somebody who's like, "Oh man, like, why are we going to waste time and money?" Approved, and that's what we need. We need, somebody like that, hopefully. So, yes.
Thank you so much, man. I'm so excited. You've given me tons of encouragement, with your
Awesome.
expertise and your skills at writing convincing letters. Um, I've got high hopes that I'm going to move the needle on my service connected disability compensation. So thank you so much.
Awesome. You're welcome, sir.
In the Baltimore area, I'm definitely gonna let you know. I'd love to meet you and take you to dinner or something.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Let me know when you're up here. Oh, and the last thing I was going to say, just give me a couple of days, like likely by the weekend or maybe by next week, I'll get it to you. Just give me a little bit of time just to word everything.
I've got my effective date from September. I've got plenty of time.
Oh,
and I'm not in a hurry.
Great.
I'm going to make sure that all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed, and I've got my full packet of a fully developed claim ready to submit all at once, and I'll file it as a fully developed claim.
Awesome.
So that it'll hopefully be expedited in the process.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
exactly.
I'm hurry. I'm still working with Finnerty on getting the other DBQ and Nexus. He's expecting that sometime this month. I'm thinking
Great.
by the end of the month. But that's really it. I think that's all I need to submit my claim. I've got all the evidence queued up and ready. It's just a matter of deciding what to give the VA.
Yes.
Without giving them everything that I gave you, I want to focus on what they need.
Yes, yeah, and that's very important. You don't want to confuse them, or distract or anything. And I think you've got you.
All of my visits with my VA psych doctor, I'll have those pulled out into one file for mental health.
Yes.
The same thing with the migraine.
Perfect. Yeah. And yeah, exactly. And so when I'm done, I'll upload the files, and then I'll email you letting you know that I'm done and I uploaded it. Okay, to the folder.
And it'll be in the shared folder
the same folder. Yeah, the same exact folder. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. And then real quick, if you've got a minute, I'm just curious to know how you met up with Sivdiv. I don't even know his name.
Yeah.
I just call him Sivdiv.
Yeah, Clayton. Yeah. Yeah. So basically, what happened is that he approached me after I had talked to one of his viewers, basically, right? And I guess what stood out to him was my the free record review. So like one of his viewers told him about me, and I had worked with him on a Nexus letter, and I had done this free record review before taking the case on to make sure we could win, or that it was valid. I mean,
right.
Before, and then so that's how he emailed me, and then that's how we connected. Pretty much. And
that's a huge signal for me as well, that you provide the free record review.
Yes.
And what that tells me is that you have confidence in your ability to win claims, that you can provide that service up front to help a veteran understand if they have a valid claim or not.
Yes.
And then
exactly.
You tell them, no, I can't help you for whatever reason.
Yes.
Pick on the people you can help.
Exactly. And I've only had one person who, when I told them I can't help them, one guy who was kind of upset, but other than that, like everybody's been like, "Oh, wow, thanks, doc. Like I didn't have to spend any money, like, thank you." And then some folks who I tell, like, you got to go, you got to go talk to your VA doc. You got to do sessions with your psychologist. You know, get a psychologist first. You know, you got to do that, and then come back and let me know. You know, and then we'll talk about it again.
Give them a
You know
game
that.
plan.
Yes.
This is why I can't help you, but here's what you need to do to help me help
Yes. Exactly. Exactly.
you. And you do that
So
free of charge. That's awesome, man. I
yeah,
appreciate
and I love.
better.
Oh, thank you, sir. No, thanks for the kind words. But yeah, I love doing this work. So my plan is, I'm still seeing patients regular patients, but in the future I want to do this 100% because it's really cool. Like working with veterans, and then when they email me about like the results, it's really nice. It's a different type of reward, you know.
Sure,
I think so.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure that's an amazing feeling every time you get that feedback that the veteran is now in a much better position thanks to
Yes.
your help. So yeah, man.
Exactly.
How did you find helping veterans? How did you come into that? If you have time.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thanks for asking. I like this topic. So basically, what happened was, so I was I was in the Air Force a long time ago. I never knew about this whole right, like Nexus letters and stuff like that, right? So then I'm going along, minding my business. I did my psychiatry residency. I get out, and I'm just working in a hospital, right? And then
Uh-huh.
I get this email. This was 3 years ago. I get this email from this company who's like, "Hey, do you want to do?" It was LHI, okay?
Yep.
They do the CMP exams, right? And then they were like, "Hey, do you want to do these CMP exams?" And the reason why I think they get a lot of nurse practitioners is they pay a very low fee and they make you see a bunch of people, right? But their goal is to get you to be conservative, right? And not grant, they want you to be, it's more adversarial, right?
Sure. They're looking for any excuse to deny or to say less likely than not, right?
Exactly. So then I told them no, obviously. And then I looked into what is this thing? Like, what's the other side? Because who's helping the veterans, right? Like, who's giving like actual, good, assessments.
Right, because you
And
came from the military. So
exactly, yeah. And I was like, I'm not going to go against the veterans. Like, no way.
right.
So that's when I looked into this, and then I got with a company who was doing DBQs for veterans to support their claim, and I started doing those. And then I started looking into doing Nexus letters, and that's when I started my own thing, and I started doing my own Nexus letters and DBQs together to give people a fully developed claim. So,
That's
yeah, yeah. So, but no, thanks for asking, sir.
sure.
Yeah, and
Thank you so much.
you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, you're excellent to work with. If everybody was it was like, it's no, I mean everybody's great, obviously, but folks are not as technologically, sort of, inclined. So sometimes
But
it's
I'm a
tough.
little
But
OCD and anal retentive, and I keep everything. I'm a hoarder with records. With, paper, I'm going to make digital files for all my records. And I have them in multi layers of hierarchy.
nice. No, it definitely helped me.
Cool.
But yes or no, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for telling me everything, your story and the files. And yeah, I'll start working on this.
All right, Tom, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. And
You're welcome. You too.
Anxiously waiting, patiently.
All right.
No rush.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Take your time.
Thanks, Keith.
All right, have a good
I appreciate it. All right, you too. Thank you.